the story it comes from another continent, which is India, and went there a couple of times to workshop and to teach and to demonstrate capture techniques to Indian colleagues. I realized the first time I got there that they really had no idea of the sort of techniques that we've been using here in Africa, and it was quite a daunting experience initially. However, we successfully moved and corrected a local extinction of gawas, which is commonly known as Indian bison. It was an amazing operation working with elephants and incredibly satisfying. And then we shifted to other species and showing them different methods of capture, and we were trying to show them mass capture, which involved either, as we conventionally do here in Africa, with a capture site and a helicopter that chases the animals in, or alternatively, what we had recommended was a passive capture. And we started just with something very common in India, called a spotted deer, or in India referred to as a chital. They've got an overabundance of them in many parks, and they actually do need to manage them in one way or the other. One way is translocation. So our Indian colleagues built a capture site, or a passive capture site. It was all constructed out of straw, something unconventional that we're not used to seeing. And they were then feeding the chital in at nighttime, because that's kind of when they were least shy, I guess, and used to come into the site. And there's a particular plant or tree in India called a mahur tree, which has a distinctive red flower. And the chital loved these flowers, so they used to pile these flowers into the middle of the capture site, and every night these deer would come in and feed. So one would think it's a simple matter of waiting for them to come in and then closing the gate. So we set this all up, but unbeknownst to us, they arranged to have all the dignitaries and the superiors and the big bosses around for this event, and it was just a no-go. We had vehicles arriving, we had people talking on cell phones, and obviously something like this has to be done very much under the radar, dead quiet, and no smells and scents and things around. It didn't work. So for the want of doing something the next day, we thought, well, perhaps we'll try and chase the spotted deer into the site, using just people on the ground, because there's certainly enough of people in India that can do this sort of work with no shortage of staff and volunteers. However, the capture site was so built that, not like we do in Africa, where we actually camouflage the front of the capture site, so the animals, by the time they get there, they don't realize they're even inside the capture site. They've got no hint of or suspicion that there's something going on. There was a lot of open ground before the site, so that it was visible from quite a long distance. But in any case, we gave it a try, and we were hiding in the capture site itself and watching proceedings. So we had a long line of beaters that were beating all sorts of instruments, making as much noise as they could, waving white flags. And at the same time, we also had at least 10 elephants that were accompanying the beaters. And they were all walking in a long line. And in front of them, you could see the chital coming towards us, all bounding along, until suddenly they got to within about 50 meters from the capture site, and they realized something was up, and there was no ways they were going to be chased in without giving up, giving a bit of a fight. And so they turned around and started heading back, and at the heads of the beaters that were coming towards them in the opposite direction, and running in between them, and obviously the noise level went to the highest it could possibly go, as everyone was shouting and screaming. And one elephant decided he'd had enough. This wasn't for him. So he just turned tail and started heading home. And with that, the rest of the elephants followed us. So we had this sight of these trumpeting elephants wandering off, going off into the distance, being pursued by dozens of spotted deer with a whole bunch of beaters lying flat in their stomachs. I'll never forget. It was a very humorous moment, and I guess sometimes a lesson learned for everybody. There's certain ways you can catch animals and certain ways you're not going to come right.